Sorry about ending to part one like that, but this thing cuts me off at 15 minutes, and all of a sudden I looked down and I was at 14.59, and I was like, ah! So that's why I jumped off really quick. I apologize about that. Okay, so let's look at population pyramids again. If you look at this pyramid for India, this is a rapidly growing population. Nice wide base, the sides stay pretty darn straight. That is a rapidly growing population. Oh, and be very careful when you look at this. Look at the scale here. This goes out to 70, and then this one goes out to 15. So this scale is a big deal, okay? So make sure you're looking at it. Here is the United States right now. We're pretty much a tower. We're actually pretty stable at this point. We're slightly growing, but very, very slight growth. And most of our growth is due to immigration. So the fact that right now immigration is such a big deal kind of bothers me, because honestly, our population would decrease without immigration. And if our population starts decreasing, there's huge issues that go along with that. And here's Germany, whose population is decreasing. See how that tapers in there at the bottom? Their population is decreasing, and they are actually having lots of problems. Causes a lot of economic issues. There's nobody paying taxes. There's not enough people to employ in jobs and stuff like that. And that's why they really open their doors and are trying to get people to immigrate into Germany to solve their problem, because their problem is a huge one. And then here we have China. China kind of tapers in. That's because China has some really odd issues with their population growth and stuff. They're somewhat stable at this point. They're probably growing a little bit because they're asking people to immigrate, and people are immigrating into the country. But they have a very odd one. But you can get a general idea of what a population is doing based on their pyramid. So if you have a tower or you have a reduced population kind of thing, that's probably more likely to be a developed country, where your developing countries are still pretty much a true pyramid. Okay, we'll come back to that when we talk about your demographic transition model. Okay, so family size. What kind of factors affect family size? Well, education and wealth happen to be two of them. The more educated, especially women are, the fewer children they choose to have, primarily because they choose to either focus and have enough money, want enough money for one, or they are also working. And so they're trying to divide their life between working and children. And so they usually have maybe one or two children, and some even choose to have none. Also, the more wealthy we are, usually the more money we have, or the fewer children we have. Sorry, of course, the more money we have. The fewer children we have, because actually as you become educated and you move to the city and stuff, children start to cost you money. If you are very rural in a developing country, your children working on the farm can actually help pay for your family. So if your children can work, you're more likely to have more children. But once you move into the city and stuff like that, your children actually are more costly, and you usually have less. So again, if you're very rural, if you're living on a farm, more children actually mean more hands, and that can actually benefit the family and create support. They can work. So usually rural families have more children than that. And high infant mortality. If your country or your family has high infant mortality, all your ancestors had 6 kids and half of them passed away or died, you are going to have a lot more kids. You're going to react to that, thinking that half of your children are going to die as well. And so your birth rate is going to be much higher than it otherwise would be. Women are the big factor when it comes to children, and how families function and how many children a family has. A woman who marries early, excuse me, is more likely to have more children because she's just in the marriage for more of her reproductive years. So she's more likely to have more children. The more education a woman has, especially a woman, the less children she has, often because she can work and help bring in money, so there's less need for children, kind of thing. And as far as education, I'm not talking college education. I'm talking elementary education, or even just being educated on family planning. And we will talk about family planning, and that does not equate to abortion. If a woman has access to family planning or birth control, the idea behind family planning is that you get to plan when you want to have children, how many children you want. You don't just willy-nilly reproduce kind of thing. So it's planning. It does not have to do with anything, and there's many ways to plan without access to birth control. But birth control is, of course, one of the easiest ways to determine when and how many children you wish to have. Many countries do not have Social Security. They do not have any kind of pension plan for people when they get older. If you live in a country like this, your children are your pension plan. And often it's the male children who are expected to take the parents in and let them live with them. And this is very, very common in many cultures. So if you live in a culture where this is what has happened, there is no pension, you want to make sure you have children to take care of you. And preferably, again, in most countries or most cultures, it's the male child. So you want to make sure you have a couple boys. If you don't have a couple boys and you only have one boy and he happens to pass away, you have no one to care for you and you're going to be out on the street. And that's a very big deal. So those are other things that determine family size or factor in. Other things, religion, of course. Most religions actually think you should have lots of children, which is fine. It's just, a preference. Some are being better about this. Typo. Gotta fix my typos. Tradition and culture, again, that male child preference. So you'll have lots of children to guarantee you have 2 or 3 males. Lack of women rights. This is kind of the scary thing. In many countries, ladies, we do not have the say, or women do not have the say in their reproductive lives. It's their husband. So women are seen as property to work and produce heirs. If you have the situation where women are more educated and stuff, then that actually increases their political rights and their status, and that will actually lower fertility. So educating women is a huge, huge deal. Huge deal. Okay, so in developed countries, we usually have some form of pension. We have no child labor laws, so you can't make your little 6-year-old go to work. Our women are usually more educated, and our children are seen as a financial burden. Let me tell you about daycare. That stuff's expensive. You're talking, I found cheap daycare, and it was $110 or $120 a week. I was paying $500 a month for my child just for daycare. Didn't count the diapers and everything else. So that ends up meaning that you have a lower total fertility rate, which means fewer children per woman. They are expensive, let me tell you. You guys are. That's okay. We love you. Okay. Grain population, birth dearth. One of the biggest problems with populations is not just that we're having babies, but it's the fact that with better food, better water, better medicine, we live longer. Okay? So if your older population is not dying, but living longer, that's actually adding to your population. They've already been added, of course, but those are individuals that used to be subtracted, and now they're not being subtracted. And our older populations, they don't really like our younger population. So often they vote against taxes and stuff that would be good for our younger population. They don't vote for the half-penny sales tax for education because their kids are already not, they're graduated, they're adults, they have their own kids, so they often vote against that. If we have an older population and you have no young, you don't have anybody to fill those job vacancies as the people retire. This is one of the problems like that Germany's running into, and this is one of the reasons you do not want a negative population growth. You don't want your population shrinking, because then you will have those job vacancies, and that can cause a lot of problem. That means less taxes being paid, less people paying into Social Security, less individuals joining the military, because there is not the number of young. So we have to be very careful when we have a declining population, because that population is getting older and older. Okay, with regards to the government, in countries like Germany with rapid decline, you have to promote immigration of workers. And here, when we're talking about stopping that, that would be a very bad idea for the United States. It really, really would. Because we need people in there paying their taxes, paying their Social Security. Yes, legally would be nice, but we really do need those workers. Incentives for women to have more children. In many countries now, like Sweden has a 1-year maternity leave. You get 1 year off with your baby, completely paid. So your family doesn't have to worry about you going back to make money and stuff. You can take a year off to have your children. So a lot of things trying to promote the birth of children. Okay. Migration. So you immigrate into a country, you're immigrating out of it. Your net migration rate is, again, crude. It's immigration minus immigration. And that's the movement of people. Doesn't affect global population, only countries. And we talked about that before. So if you're talking about a country, you have to take this into consideration. If you're talking about the planet, you do not. Okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and make this number 2, part 2. So I hope that covers everything. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask. See you later.